Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Paul, I'm excited for our guest, Jenn Taylor, to come on. Another great interview coming up for you guys. So make sure to follow or subscribe so you're not missing out on a single interview, whether it's on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform. Paul, another week. I'm excited, man.
Yeah. I hate to start the show on a sad note, but I found out recently that Charlie Daniels passed away, legendary country singer at the age of 83. And I know that's one of your favorites, Justin. Why don't, as a tribute, why don't you sing a couple bars of The Devil Went Down to Georgia?
Oh, man. I don't know if I would do it justice singing Devil Went Down to Georgia, but you know what? I do have an interesting memory from that song. So when I was a kid, I had a record of that song. It was just a single. It was a 45, and I played the crap out of that one. And I remember that when the fiddles would come on, like I would go pull out like a couple hangers out of the closet and pretend like I was playing the fiddle. Right. And I actually got my sister involved in it. And we would battle back and forth like the two fiddles are battling in the song. For anyone who's never heard The Devil Went Down to Georgia, listen to the song. It's an epic song. There's two fiddles battling in the song itself. But yeah, I have a memory of that. And literally, like, it was so ingrained in my memory. There was a really deep scratch in the record. And so every time I hear the song on the radio now, I still hear the skip. It's like it's just the one part of the song where it always skipped whenever I played the record. And so I still hear it and I'm anticipating it when it comes on the radio there. But now, sad to see, a legend like that go. But I was a big fan of his. And like I said, it was a good memory. Something sharing with my sister growing up. We'd grab some hangers and just like beat the crap out of them, pretending like we're playing the fiddle. So, but no, thanks for bringing that up, Paul. So that was a good memory there.
Yeah. One thing I just want to mention on that song is the confidence that was the fiddle player Johnny. Was his name Johnny?
Yeah.
Okay. The confidence he had when, obviously this is the devil, right? The devil, all powerful, right? And he's done playing the fiddle, and the confidence that he has with himself to play the fiddle was like, okay, devil, sit back down and let me show you how it's done. And I thought, wow, what confidence that Johnny had going up against somebody as powerful as the devil. So kind of a good confidence booster.
It is, and it's rare nowadays to get that type of storytelling in music. But that's how it was back in the days. It was more about the story of the song. So yeah, again, for those of you that have not heard that song, it's got a good story in it as well. Obviously, it's fictional, but it's a fun story. And like Paul's saying, having that confidence to go, hey, I'm going to conquer anything. I don't care what I'm up against. It really just, believing in yourself, having that true belief in yourself. And I think that's something that our guest is going to talk about a little bit today. We've checked out her content. And so I'm excited to have her come on the show and tell us about, her belief in herself and how she puts that out to her clients or in her book or, in her own podcast. So let's go ahead and bring out Jenn Taylor to the show. So Jenn Taylor is a mom of 18 She's also known as the Naked Podcaster. She's a coach, speaker, and author. Learning the story behind the person is a true passion. Jenn has 15 plus years in the foster care sector as both a parent and a trainer, has written a blog for over 8 years and her podcast for over 3 years. And she's also a published author of a self-help memoir that's titled Hello, My Name is Warrior Princess. Jenn is also a partner to an amazing man in Reno, Nevada, a runner, minimalist, and a healthy lifestyle enthusiast. So let's go ahead and bring out Jenn Taylor to the show. All right, Jenn, welcome to the Actions Limits podcast. We're glad to have you on.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, your bio is pretty interesting. You're definitely involved in a lot of different things. I think probably one of the biggest things that stood out to me and probably stands out to a lot of your audience, that being a naked podcaster. I'm curious how that came about for you. Like, where did that idea come from?
It was so organic. And I love the story. I had a coach years ago who said, "What is your ideal job?" And I'm like, "I don't want to have to wear pants." So like Zoom is perfect because I don't have to wear pants. And actually my husband walked in the room once and I was doing a podcast interview, and you can't see him, but he can see me, and I was not wearing pants. This was when, and I don't know why, I don't know what this, I just know that I'm clothing optional as often as possible without being like rude and in public. I'm not an exhibitionist. So afterwards, of course, he made a comment. This was in the first couple months of my podcast, and it was called, at first it was called Rerouting, because of how different life puts you in different places, not how you expected. It's like your GPS, like you turn left and it tells you to turn left, and then it's rerouting and you're like, how am I always rerouting? So in the very beginning, that's what it was called. And he walks in and I'm not wearing pants, and afterwards I'm like, I could actually be naked and no one would know. I mean, look at where you can see me from like the armpits up. And he's like, "So you are the naked podcaster?" And I was like, "Oh, I could be the naked podcaster." But it has to, for me, as great as that's like funny and sex sells and great branding and all that stuff, it had to fit. And what I was asking my guests to do on my podcast was bear it all. And that was actually in my language, that my interviews are so raw that if you cry, I'm not happy that you're crying, but I'm happy that we've dug that deep. I want to get more information than we can find online. And I want people who are listening in your story to feel less alone. So you are really, really digging deep, raw, vulnerable, and authentic, and bearing it all. And so it was a great fit because I bear it all physically to support you bearing it all emotionally on my podcast. And it was like a very happy accident that the Naked Podcaster was born. It happens to fit my personality. I'm just a little sarcastic and not politically correct. And it also, I mean, figuratively, it worked well. And then when I went to video in January of 2020, I do it with nothing on.
There you go. So you can give your husband credit for coining the whole naked podcaster, and you're a coach and a speaker as well. Like, how much of what you do, like, how does it go over into your clients and to when you have these speaking engagements, like the bear it all? Obviously, you're probably not getting up on stage naked, but just like that message, that's important, right? Like, to really get down to, well, like, what is the problem? Like, you have to be able to be vulnerable and to be able to bear it all. I really like that message.
I think that's kind of who I have always been. I have never struggled in issues of self-esteem or confidence, not because I think I'm great or better or anything like that, just because that was not my struggle. But honestly, I wanted to write a book for years, and I talked about it on my life growing up in dysfunction, and I didn't because I was afraid. I was afraid my mom is still alive and she'll read it. I was afraid my kids would read it and they would look at me differently. And in February 2015, my ex-husband, 3 of my kids, there were 6 kids with him under the age of 18, and 3 of them came forward and said that he was being physically abusive. I'm not here to speak about whether or not he was. I'm not defending him or accusing him. That's moot. But what it did do was it taught me that regardless of how good of a job I'm trying to do, kids are still going to get screwed up. I'm going to screw them up inadvertently, even trying to do a great job. They're going to get bullied. They're going to have, issues at work, issues with friends, issues with school, with teacher. They're going to go through their own self-esteem. But that was a hugely pivotal moment. I had full custody of the kids at that point. I was back in court, and it was very difficult. The kids, once they said something, kind of fell apart. And at that point, I was like, I'm not going to be afraid to tell my story, because I don't ever want my children to be afraid of theirs. So in August of 2016, my book came out. It's called Hello, My Name is Warrior Princess, and it's a lot of dysfunction that I grew up with. And the catalyst, my desire to write was always there, but the catalyst was that I didn't want my children to be afraid. 9 months after I released the book, I started the podcast, which was May of 2017. And the podcast is all about other people telling their stories. So I told mine, and I was raw and unafraid. And now I ask other people to tell theirs. And it all started from me wanting my kids to understand that they should never be afraid of who they are and their story, and that it doesn't define them. So a lot of that goes into my speaking and coaching. Speaking started like 30 years ago. Coaching started, it's a solid 15 or more. I did foster care for 12 years, and I was a trainer of trainers. And I got a lot of experience there with speaking and teaching and coaching. And I realized that I'm kind of wired to see the silver lining in everything. And I'm wired to not be afraid of sharing the truth of what's happening. It kind of is what it is. You'll either like me or not. So I might as well be my genuine self. And I don't think it helps people by holding back and holding in. And so I wanted to be an example of that for my kids, and I wanted to do that for my own personal reasons, and that it felt better to be authentic and raw. So all of my speaking, coaching, the podcast, the book, the kids, everything's intertwined. Everything is about finding the silver lining and the joy in things, having gratitude, and getting through the traumas that life throws at you, not labeling yourself, not allowing others to label you, and not being afraid of your story.
Well, I came on your show, and boy, I hope I was raw and honest. Now I'm like thinking back, oh man, was I really honest with myself? But you're a mother of 18. How do you keep your sanity being a mother of 18?
That's a great question, because it's anybody who has kids knows that it's hard. And I want to address the number 18 first, because the second people hear that, they downsize themselves or put themselves down. I don't know how to say this correctly. Oh, I only have one. I can't imagine. Oh, I only have 3. It isn't a competition. I've written 1 book. I have a really great friend who's written 17. We're still both called authors. So regardless of the number of kids you have, we're both called parents, and it's not a competition. So don't belittle how hard parenting is of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 just because I have 18. The reason that I didn't lose my sanity is because I chose my life and I love it. And I think that looking at your life through that lens, that doesn't mean that there aren't super hard days or super hard moments in the day. I had a super hard moment today. Those things are going to happen. But I still know at the end of the day, I chose it and I love it. And I show up 150% in everything I do, including parenting. That was the single biggest blessing and responsibility I felt like I had. And I wanted to make a positive difference in the life of these kids. Like, someone took the time to make a positive difference in my life when I was raised in dysfunction. And we really can make a huge impact in people's lives, even in passing, a lot of times without even knowing it. And my lens is that I chose this life and I love it. And that means that I know I can get through it. Also, I don't know about you, but I have a 100% success rate of getting through really shitty days. 100%. The day ends, you get through it, you figure it out, you come up with plan B. 100% success rate in getting through some really, really, really tough stuff. So this too shall pass, right?
I'm curious, what do you mean by 100% success rate? What would be a non-success rate of not getting through the day?
I don't know. Like I tap out, like I give up, like I walk away. I don't know. I don't have a plan B that is not 100% success rate. When we have bad days at work or with your partner or with your spouse or with your kids, you kind of sometimes trudge through it, but eventually you get through the hard time. And that may mean a lot of things: medication, therapy, alcohol. I don't know. But we figure out ways to get through the tough stuff and continue on. And if you can do that in a more positive way and learn from it, then great.
I really like what you said, that choosing your life. Yeah, and people can look at that in multiple ways, right? But even if you're not in the best situation, you can still choose to be in your life in the moment and take it as it is. And that doesn't mean that you may not be working at some type of change, but really like sitting with it and going, this is where I'm at. I'm choosing to be in my life 100%, rather than going like, well, I wish I was doing this, or I wish I was doing something else. That's a huge mindset tool for people. And I'm sure you share that with your clients as well, just choosing to be where you're at.
Exactly. And actually, you can spend less time than you probably are spending now in a more positive way than you already do if you make some shifts. It's not hard to do, but it takes effort. And that, I mean, I went through infertility and was told I would probably never have children. I have 18. So those are two very different lenses, right? But I got through that because I knew one way or another I would have a family. I didn't know what it would look like, and I knew it probably wouldn't be traditional, and I certainly didn't expect 18 kids. I never sat down and was like, yeah, 18 sounds like a nice round number. It just happened, and I think I've learned to just take what is presented to me and make a decision and move forward. And that's part of choosing your life. I've been divorced. I went through infertility. I've had miscarriages. I had kids that came forward and told me that their dad was being abusive. I had to navigate. Those were not good days. These were not good days or good points in my life or times in my life that I was happy and joyous. Being divorced with an ex-husband in prison, working 3 jobs, having 9 kids under the age of 12 at home, not my happiest year. But a lot of that was that it was my choice. One way or the other, I made the decisions that got me to that point. And if I wanted it different, I had to make other decisions to move me out of that.
Talk to me about compound interest. I know that you talk about compound interest. What does that mean to you?
I think compound interest is like the most exciting theory ever. And I'm not even like a math geek. I can't, don't make me teach math or anything like that. But compound interest, I was so fascinated about it when I heard about it. So you can finance a car or a house and people understand, or you can have an investment and you understand compound interest. It's like small daily actions, right? They're not hard, small daily easy actions. You put a penny in a day, that sort of thing, and it adds up over time. It can work for you or against you. And I know like in high school, I remember learning about the theory of compound interest and thinking, oh my gosh, this is like in everything. Think about the friends you have. Think about the exercise you do. If I do 20 squats today, my butt will not look any different. But if I do 20 squats every day for 3 months, now we're starting to talk compound interest, right? That's a really super easy example. And I just think if you break everything down, one of my favorite expressions is you can't eat an elephant in one bite. If you break it down into small, easy daily actions, not overwhelming. Totally easy to do. And that's how you can change the lens that you view your life through, and the negativity and the overwhelm and the stress is by doing small daily easy actions that add up over time. And so yes, my main speaking, my flagship speaking and my flagship coaching is called Compounding Joy. It's small easy daily actions that add up over time to give you more gratitude and joy in your life. I'm not changing your life. I'm not getting rid of stressful situations or conflicts. I'm changing the lens that you look at it with so that you have a better attitude to deal with the stress and conflict when it happens. When I looked at how I had gotten through some of the super tough stuff that I got through, and I'm still obnoxiously happy, and this is a life I chose and I'm loving it, I realized I just have consistently done small, easy daily actions. Compound interest is in my life every day in a positive way. So when you go through the drive-thru to get a coffee and the barista screws up your order, right? Super easy to be pissed at the barista. You're so dumb, you can't even figure out how to do my order. Whatever. People get angry all the time. They're negative. It's so easy. It's so easy to be negative. But if I go through a drive-thru and the kid comes on the intercom and I'm like, hey, and I get to the window and I'm like, dude, you made my day on the intercom today. Like, I don't know what's going on in your life, but totally keep it up. You are killing it. It just rocked my world today. We don't tend to take the same or less amount of time to really focus on those things that are positive. And my whole goal is to get you to shift your lens where that's all you're looking for. You're training your brain to look for the positive in the world. And I've done that for so many years. And when I realized, like, it's no big secret, it's compound interest working for me. That's all I've done. That's it. But there are ways to do it, and there are ways to make it easy, and there are ways to make it a good habit, and there are ways to do it and be supported. And so that's huge. People should be happy. We
Do
don't
you
need.
have a Do you have a quick example on compound interest that people could do real simply, or?
Yep, first one that I give, and I have an example of daytime and nighttime or by yourself and family. So I used to get those little notebooks. First of all, I am a huge advocate of writing it down. I love Notepad on my phone. I got hooks up to my MacBook. Everything syncs. Don't do that. Don't use that. Actually get a 50-cent notebook if you have to, or anything that you have. Call it your gratitude journal, whatever makes you happy. But you write 3 things you're grateful for. I don't care if you do it in the morning or the evening. I do it in the evening because I want to write down 3 things that happened to me that day. And it has to be 3 new things. In 21 days, science has proved you've trained your brain to look for the positive in the world. I don't care if it's making your bed. I don't care that you've remembered to brush your teeth twice. It doesn't have to be big monumental things. What 3 things are you grateful for that day? You're still breathing. Cool. That is enough. I want you to do 3 things every single day, just so that your brain is looking for the positive, because eventually that gets to be no big deal. And the things that you're writing down are bigger than making your bed or remembering to brush your teeth, or I'm just thankful today that I'm breathing. The way you can use it in family, I did, and I love the power of 3. It's played in my life inadvertently for years, so I'm so psyched that there's science behind it, 'cause it makes me feel so smart, even though it was totally unintentional. I had this huge family and all these kids at the dinner table, and we were a no technology at dinner family, and we did this thing. I called it high-low. So you could tell me one thing about your day that wasn't that great. That was your low. And there's one thing, because I don't focus on the negative, but I don't want to dismiss that sometimes we have hard days, right? One thing that wasn't good, and then 3 things that you are happy about, your highs, 3 things that were happy about your day. And all of my kids, it's great with kids, because if anybody else talks or jokes and stuff, it's like, hey, so-and-so's got the floor right now, so, let them have the floor. It made my kids realize that to me, they were important, and what they said mattered. And it also taught them to look for 3 things that happened in their day that they were positive about, and that I did not dismiss the things that were crappy, but I didn't focus on them either. So that's a great way to do the 3 things that you're grateful for in a day with a family. And if you do them, then you can just write them down at that time. But I'm telling you, in 21 days, you don't realize it happens, because compound interest it just sneaks up on you. You don't see it every single day. It's not like one day you flip a switch and you're happy. But you are going to notice over time that you are searching for things to be excited about in the day. You're searching for things to share with your family at night, at dinner, during high-low. You're searching for it.
I'm going to start that with my daughter. That's exciting. I really like that idea. One thing that came up for me that I've started recently, because we tend to point out when other people are in negative emotional states. It's very rare that we point out when someone is in a positive emotional state. So what I've started doing with my daughter is, when I see her, like, and she's in a good mood, I'm like, hey, well, why are you so happy? Or like, what's going on? Like, why are you such a happy little girl? Like, and it actually enhances her mood. She's like, I don't know, I'm just happy. So it's the same kind of idea, pointing out the positive rather than focusing on the negative. But no, I'm really excited to start that with my daughter and get her in that practice of pointing out the things that she's grateful for throughout the day. I really like that.
Good. Yeah, that's a single biggest thing that I start with. I think it's huge, and it's so easy to do it with kids. And like you said, kids are so innately happy about stuff they don't even know. But smiling, the science behind smiling is huge. So if I smile at you, even though I could be mad right now or just cried a few minutes ago, but if I smile at you, my brain actually thinks that I'm happy. Even if I'm like, fake it till you make it. I'm not happy, but I do it, and it's contagious. So I love this. This is a second tip for you, Paul. Okay. I love just like, see the difference that it makes when you smile at people. Just just freaking smile at them, because you're going to realize you're tricking yourself into being happy. At the same time, other people are being happy. Like it's triggering. It's this great, like it's this happy hamster wheel of just greatness. And that's, you're compounding joy that way because it's something that keeps giving and giving and giving.
I love it. And something simple too. And like you said, there's science behind it. It's like the mirrored neurons that are firing when we see facial expressions in other people. So it's a little trick, but you know, and you don't really need to know the science behind it, but it helps to kind of understand what's going on. But you know, Paul and I have talked about that before, just walking through the grocery store and just smiling at someone. And it's like, oh, hey, someone's being friendly. I'll smile back too. Right. And they don't even know what's going on. And, you know, it might change that person's day. You know, so all these little tricks and tips, like it's all very useful. I like it. I like it all, Jen.
Thanks. I make sure I wasn't asking people to do more in their day, because you're taking, and I'm going to use like moms as an example. You know, you're a mom, maybe you work corporate, you're trying to get a business launched, you're staying at home and you never get a break. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed. Here I come, happy and smiling, saying, and here's a list of all these things you need to do. That's why I said, these are fast and easy. It will not take more time out of your day. It will probably, within like a week or two, you'll realize you have more time in your day, but you're also feeling less stressed. And so your outlook and the lens you're viewing things on is changing at the same time. And so that's freeing up more of your time and energy. So it really, I mean, compound interest, it is, I'm telling you, that theory is in everything in life. So it's my favorite.
You also mentioned that you're a minimalist. Can you tell us what
This
that
is great because it's also part of what I teach. You don't have to have a backpack and tour Europe on foot. Okay, it does not have to be that extreme. We all fit different molds. Dana and I had 12 kids at home at the time, and I was working corporate, you know, he was working his job. It was before I launched my business, and I remember driving home just thinking, like gearing up for the catastrophe that I knew was going to meet me at the house. It would just look like a tornado went through it. Now with 12 kids, even if they each have one pair of shoes, it's 12. Even if they each have one backpack, it's 12. Like I was doing kids Costco style. Okay, it was like a volume business going on at home. But I would get home and it was like, there's just so much stuff and so much chaos. And Dane looked at me one day, a couple things happened at the same time. Dane looked at me and he's like, sometimes I feel like I can't help clean the house because I don't know where to start. So you accumulate things and you put them there and you get another Rubbermaid container. You stick it in that and you put that on the shelf. And like, it just keeps going. It's a bad compound interest. And he said that, which made me feel bad, one, because I want help, and two, well, that's a problem. Okay, like if we don't even know how to keep our act together here in our own home, and coming home wasn't a stress reliever, it was stressful to come home. And then I had a friend stop by, and you want your friends to come over and you want it to feel beautiful and warm and fuzzy, and she said, wow, you guys have a lot of stuff. And I was like, okay. So I started looking online because my house is clean and I'm very organized. Those were not issues and those were not helping. We just were overwhelmed with stuff. And, you know, we had a daughter at the time she's 10 now. This was like 5.5 years. You know, we had a 5-year-old all the way up to kids that were graduating high school. And I think we had 7 kids in high school at the time. So they're accumulating stuff. And we just kind of hit the wall. And I was done. And I realized that if my house is stressing me out, that's a problem. So that's one way, just by minimizing. I don't care if you do the condo method or how you do it. But there were 2 things. One being a lot more conscious of what we kept and what brought us joy and what we loved and what we really used. And so we took things methodically. We went through each room in the house. And you take everything out and it's a disaster and you're miserable and you hate life. But then you really look like, is this useful? Do we use this? Kids' toys? Or are they not using it? Do we need to pass it on? Or is it something like art? Does it bring us a lot of joy? Do we really love it? And so you get rid of the stuff that is not useful and does not bring you joy. That looks different for everyone. You can have a 5-bedroom, 2,500 square foot house. and be a minimalist, because you're intentional in what you allow in, and you're intentional about what you keep. And your home is a haven that does not create any stress. So for me, minimalism, yeah, I mean, I want to go live in an RV and tour the country full time. That's like totally my fantasy life. But in the meantime, or if that doesn't occur, how can I walk into every room of my house and just like, oh, I love being in this room. And that's the way you want to feel in your own home. It should be a haven that's stress free. And if you don't, stop organizing and start getting rid of crap that is not useful and does not bring you joy.
How do you get your kids on that page?
That was fun because the kids, we talked about like getting rid of toys and stuff like that. One, in a house that big, we had a certain amount of space. So things had to fit in that amount of space. So if you want to get super creative about your organization so you can fit more in the space, that's one way you can do it. The other way is that, like with older kids, 7 kids in high school, this is how much a storage unit costs. I am not a storage unit. If you would like to keep these things because you think you'll use them later, then it might be time for you to all get together and rent a storage unit, which they don't want to do, just as a side note. Also realizing that if you got that table for free from a neighbor that you're saving for when you move into an apartment next year, there's going to be another free table from a neighbor down the road. We didn't capitalize on the only one. So I was really, really big with my kids their whole life growing up with that. It's not a punishment to get rid of something. We're passing it on to someone else who needs it more than we do. And that's kind of a blessing. So it's the lens in which you see it. Getting rid of stuff isn't to punish you. It's to allow another child to appreciate something that you just don't use right now.
How do you use that as far as mindset? Because several things are coming up for me, like the different things that we do on a daily basis, or the thought patterns that we have. Like, how could you translate that and being a minimalist with your mentality?
Less is more. Well, another exercise I do, I'll give you a great example. I think this is where you're going with this. I may have looked in the mirror today and been like, oh, I really like the outfit I have on today. I like every outfit I wear because I don't have very many. I only have outfits that I love, right? So that's one thing. The next thing is like, I really like what I'm wearing today. It looks great. It would probably look better if I lost 5 pounds. Okay, we have this internal monologue. That's not a huge, horrible, scary thing. But we have these internal dialogues that are not positive. So every time you say something to yourself, I want you to think about, I went prom dress shopping for my daughter several months ago. She just graduated high school. She narrowed it down to 3 dresses, and then she's like, Mom, I want you to go. I want to pick out the dress out of the top 3 that I've narrowed it down to. So we go to the store, and we get all 3 that she had set aside, and she puts them on, and she's like, this is the one I really love. And I said to her, Kez, that dress looks great on you. You know, it looked better if you lost 5 pounds. Would I seriously ever say that to my daughter? Would I say it to my best friend? Would I say it to one of you? I would never freaking say that in a million years. I would never have. So why do we say it to ourselves? So this is the lens that you view it in. And I think this is kind of what you're asking, or an example of part of it. We clutter our minds with a lot of crap. You really have to then notice what you're saying to yourself in your mind. You have to hear it. You have to decide that today I'm going to be conscious of everything I say, and everything that you say to yourself. You look better if you lost 5 pounds. You have to stop and investigate where that's coming from. Do I want to lose 5 pounds? Okay, what can I do to do that? Maybe that's a true statement and it is something that I want to do. So I can look up at-home personal trainers, or Couch to 5K, or start tracking what I eat. Okay, there's a million things I can do. If that is something that I want, if losing 5 pounds is important to me, but I don't have to say it in a way that's negative. I can say, I love this outfit. I'm going to love it more when I lose 5 pounds. It's going to be a fun process. So it's really a matter of listening to what comes in. It's the same with your social media. Block, defriend, unsubscribe. What are you worried about hurting other people's feelings? First of all, they don't know. Second of all, they probably don't care. And if they do, I'm really, really sorry. I've done it with my family members. I do not need negativity in my life. It bombards us from every direction. I am not going to sign up for that crap. So one thing that minimalism taught me by going through your house and going through all these belongings you don't want is that, oh my gosh, that my inbox was like overwhelmed with subscriptions that I didn't use or things that didn't serve me, or people on social media when I was scrolling the feed where I was like, whoa, I don't like that. And so you start to get rid of that stuff too. And that's how you kind of declutter emotionally or internally, by the thoughts that you have and by getting rid of stuff that doesn't is it useful or does it bring you joy? Then unsubscribe, defriend, whatever you need to do.
I like it. I like that a lot. I think Paul and I have talked about that several times, finding out what the negativity is in your life and figuring out like, hey, is this something I can put up with? Is it something I want to? Can I have a conversation with the person, or do I just need to, eliminate this contact or whatever this information feed that I'm getting, and being able to get rid of the negative, and I think for me, I think getting rid of the negative has more of an impact than adding more positive. So that's my idea of it. I know Paul has a little different. We've had a little discussions about this before, about which one is the route to go. Is it add more positive, or is it get rid of the crap that we're surrounding ourselves with? So it's obviously it's both, but it's you got to figure out that balance for yourself.
Yeah, it is both. And if it's coming from you, then you need to recognize that's you can't continue to tell yourself it'd look better if I lost 5 pounds. You can't keep telling yourself that stuff. If I wouldn't say it to my daughter in the prom dress or a friend, we should not be saying this stuff to us. It's toxic. So it's just a matter of taking time and recognizing it, and then flipping the script a little bit.
Yeah. Well, how can our audience get a hold of you or look up your content? Because you've got a lot of stuff you're involved in, and a lot of the stuff you're talking about. Paul and I have preached this, over the life of this podcast. So how can people reach out to you, Jenn?
Momof18.com is the website. Doesn't matter if you spell it or use the numbers, you'll end up there anyway. All my social media is there. There's a contact form. There's a Google Voice. My emails, like, it's not possible to not get in touch with me from there. You can do it in a way that I don't capture your email if you're worried about that. I mean, Google Voice isn't stalking you. I also try to not put out content. I want to put out good content that you want to be engaged with, and connecting is one of my favorite things. But yeah, all they have to do is jump on. It's whatever is your favorite way to get in touch, and just find me there, because not reaching out is not the answer. We want to hear from people, right?
Yeah, definitely. And we'll make sure to put all your contact information there so people can reach out to you and get in touch with you. One thing we like to wrap up the show with our guests, with the idea of the Actions Limits podcast, our title in mind, what would you say is one action that people can implement right now that can really make a change in their life? And also the opposite side of that, with the limiting beliefs that you see, what's one major limit that we need to remove to make a big impact in our lives as well?
I think the action, and I've talked about a couple, but like smiling is the easiest one that you can do to make a huge impact. It takes no time and no extra effort. It's just doing it wherever you're at. So if you want to notice an impact in others and in yourself, literally smile at them. Also, move your body. And, we're in a place now that's more difficult, but be deliberate. It doesn't have to be a ton. I do squats while I have things heating in the microwave. I walk to the mailbox. I take the stairs instead of the elevator. I mean, as many little things as you can do. Exercise trains your brain that your behavior matters, and it doesn't have to be enormous. You don't have to hire a trainer and go hard and become a CrossFit champion tomorrow. You don't need to run a marathon tomorrow. But you could just move your body enough that you're teaching it that your actions matter and that you feel good. Movement feels good. And then as far as limiting beliefs, the hardest thing is recognizing them. So that's that internal dialogue that you've got going on. I think if people really stop and listen to the things that they say to themselves, you figure out what some of your limiting beliefs are. It's hard to make a change if you don't know what you're looking for. So really, really, like, even write down the horrible things that you say to yourself in your mind during the day, and how that's serving you, and how you could flip the script, because that will show you your limiting beliefs.
I
And
really like that.
change. Yeah.
Yeah, pointing it out to yourself and figuring out what behaviors you need to get rid of, And then the minor things, like you said, smile and moving your body, working out. Those are huge ways. And again, there's science behind it. You don't have to know all the science, but it's there. So Jenn, thank you so much for coming on the show. A lot of energy, a lot of different things, mindset wise, sharing with us. So we really enjoyed having you on the show, Jenn.
Thanks. It's been a blast. You ask different questions, and I always love that.
Paul always likes it when a guest comments on the questions that he asks. So thanks again, Jenn.
Thank you.
Well, Jenn was such a good guest. She had a lot of energy. It was great having someone that understands podcasting and coaching aspect. A lot of the same stuff you and I have talked about before with mindset and the positivity, removing a lot of the negative stuff. And obviously she has a different perspective with her family of 18 plus her husband, and implementing all of that. So what was your biggest takeaway?
I was nodding a lot to what she was saying. I agreed with a lot of it, with the gratitude. I teach a lot of my clients kind of the same thing. Not so much write in the journal, but that's great if you can write in a journal. But a lot of good stuff that she can teach her clients, and a lot of stuff that I will implement for my clients and for myself. So I'm glad we had her on the show.
Yeah, I think my most favorite thing was really, like, we've talked about the whole gratitude thing, like, in the morning or just writing, journaling, stuff like that. I've talked about that before, but I like the idea of having that one, maybe not so great thing, and then coming back over the top with the 3 things. And I'm really interested to see how that will apply, like, as far as working with my daughter and seeing how she gets that, and maybe even in myself, how that comes about. So I'm excited to implement that aspect, the one not so great thing followed up by the 3 great things. So yeah, really great to have her on the show. And again, we're going to put all of her contact information down in the show notes, so everybody can reach out to her and check out her content. So let's wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. And this email comes from Jacob in Oklahoma. And it says, Paul, what is the most spontaneous thing you've ever done?
Wow.
I like the look on your face that it generated. Like,
most spontaneous thing I ever done. I guess, I don't know. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out. I'm not a real big roller coaster guy. I'm kind of scared of heights. And now, as I've gotten older, I get kind of sick when I go on these rides. But I remember, being 21, 22, first dating somebody, and I didn't want them to see that I was yellow belly. So all the rides that I would never think to go on, I went on all of them. And I'm like, and every single time my heart was pumping out of my chest every single time. But I try to play it off like, oh, this is another day at the office. So I don't know if that's the most spontaneous, but that's the first that came to my mind.
Whether it's spontaneous or not, I like the fact that you faced your fears, and you're like, I really don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I like that aspect of it.
Yeah, thank you.
No, that's awesome, Paul. So again, keep sending your questions in for our segment, Ask Paul Anything, to actionsandlimits@gmail.com, and your questions may be featured on the show. So another great guest, Paul. Great show. Glad to have Jenn Taylor on with us. So yeah, man, good show.
For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right, see you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.